you feel discombobulated by that. So as you know, well, no, I just want to see how you are really. And if you need to type it in because you can't speak because it's making you tickle and cough, then you can do that. But Margaret, how are you? And anything along those lines?
Yeah, I'm okay. I've got reflux at the moment, which I don't know if it's related to menopause. No idea.
Can be for sure, yeah.
Yeah, probably is. I got it 2.5 years ago, and it had died. You know, I hadn't had it, but I got a flare of it this week. So that's been a bit debilitating, especially when you're trying to do exercise. I find when I go in to do anything, you know, with my head down. So yeah, but yeah, that's a bit of a rubbish one. But yeah. Apart from that, yeah, and I've been doing all right. I didn't do the class, but I did the video recording, parts of it that I could do. So yeah, so that's good to have the recording, especially when you can't turn up. It's good, great.
Good. And do you have a sense with your reflux of anything particular that triggers it, or?
I think it also could be to do a tight diaphragm, because I find that I last time I had it 2.5 years, I found when I had osteopathic work, it actually helped. I think if you can go maybe stressed, something happened, you know, you kind of build up of tightness there, can also, if you've got the weakness, I'm saying, which I probably have. But I have a gadget which I use, this little fella here, and it's National Reflux Day the other day, and I listened to lots of talks, but I've had this from a few years ago, but it actually pulls, when you put it in your mouth, it makes a suction, and it actually strengthens your muscles. So if you've got like a lapse, your hiatus,
hernia or whatever, oh yeah,
this covers them. This will strengthen your muscles down below and help prevent reflux. Apparently it's now available here in the NHS. I know that when I got mine.
Can you hold it still up in the shot? So it's, what's the oh, it's just a handle?
You put that into your mouth.
Yeah.
And you cause suction with it, you know, your lips around it.
Yeah.
And then you pull it for 10 seconds. You do that 3 times, and then you do that 3 times a day. So it doesn't take very long.
It makes a lot of sense, though.
It strengthens, because like all muscles, you know, basically that's what they were saying the other day. That all muscles will weaken, like all our muscles weaken as we're getting older and
exactly.
And one of them is that, you know, lots and lots more people will suffer with reflux, and you don't necessarily relate it to that. You just think, I've got reflux and here goes, we'll take the medication. But they've had great success at this.
Does it have a name, like a brand or
an Iqoro? So it's IQORO.
IQOOO.
IQORO. Yeah. But a Q, big Q, and then ORO. Yeah. But I found it very helpful when I used it, to the point that it was so helpful that I just stopped using it, which wasn't obviously the answer. I didn't have any really relapse for 2 years. But what they suggest is that when you get it like under control, it takes a while. It doesn't just instantly.
No, of course.
Help, but it takes a while, the muscle strength. But then you should continue it maybe once or twice a day.
That's very, very interesting, and that is,
you know, use of reflux medication is, it's so common, isn't it?
The problem with reflux medications in particular is that people make the mistake of thinking that reflux is because they have too much stomach acid. But you're absolutely right. It can be that for some people. For some people, it can be because they have too little stomach acid, so they're not able to digest the food properly. And then for some, it is to do with the strength of the sphincters. So we have a sphincter halfway down our esophagus and a sphincter at the top of the stomach. And if those weaken, then of course everything's going to travel back up. And also if our muscular strength for peristalsis, for bringing food down, is weakening, then that's going to also affect the ability of food to go in the direction that it's supposed to go in. And you're absolutely right that if our biceps are weakening, if our pelvic floor is weakening, of course, the muscles of the digestive system are weakening. But that's fascinating. And that's a great way to work with it is vacuums. And some of you know that I've been working that, you know, in yoga, we have this vacuum Uddiyana Bandha, and that vacuum that is created in the abdomen is specifically targeting and very valuably targeting the pelvic floor. So it's almost like with the mouth thing, the eQuoro, that it's almost like an Uddiyana Bandha in the mouth, kind of the opposite end of it. That's fascinating. And you said it's prescribed by or supported by the NHS.
Currently, yeah. Now it's, and if you go
so it obviously,
if you go to doctors that you know who you might go for gastric problems and you go about this problem, consultants that they are aware. I don't know how aware. I bought mine 2.5 years ago, so, but I think it's a good, I mean it's over £100, but I think, to be honest,
for the thingy it's 100 quid.
Yeah.
Wow.
But to be honest, I do think it was a good it was worth getting, is what I mean.
Yeah.
When I think back of how it's so debilitating, it's such a horrible condition.
It's horrible because it goes on and it's in the background the whole time, and and it's not good for you in the long run either. You know, it's not a good state to be in. That's amazing, and it's obviously got enough research behind it that
oh yeah, the website's brilliant. Yeah, I'm just trying to think what country there. It's a country. Yeah, I'm trying to think. One of the Scandinavian countries.
I've just looked it up on Google right now, and you know, it looks like there's lots of places you can get it. So yeah, they have their own website, the actual brand name, and that's all I'm seeing. Some place called Reflux UK, and actually they seem to have an article about it on the NICE guidelines on the NICE website. So the NICE is the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, which I may have told some of you before is a good place to go for your information about what is recommended for menopause care and treatment. So they're very interested in, you know, multiple study-based recommendations. So if they've got an article on it, that's fab.
Yeah, it's a lot of people not heard of it, so I've kind of told a few people over the years who, you know, said they're struggling with it to have a go or get one. So yeah, so that's my contribution.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted I asked you how you are, because that's great learning for all of us, because that's something that easily come along at some point in many of our lives, and if not in our own, then if you've elderly parents, that's going to be a thing. Absolutely.
A lot of people go on meds and then they stay on them. I know my mum was probably on, she had a reflux, and I would say she'd been on it for 20 years before she died.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And Gráinne's saying there she hears you just reading about it now, Gráinne, that it's good for snoring as well. That's cool. Cool. Great. Thanks, Margaret. So, Gráinne, how are you?
Good, thank you. Hi. It's so nice to be here. Yeah, I'm good. I recently found out I have adenomyosis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Adenomyosis.
That's to do with your adenoids.
No, it's not endometriosis. It's almost kind of like the opposite. So it's like, instead of growing out of your womb, they grow from your womb in towards the rest of your womb.
I have heard of this. Yes. So
yeah, it's not pleasant.
No, that's right. How was there a lot of pain, or is there a lot of pain associated?
Loads. Yeah, and I thought like it was back pain because I had an old injury, quite a severe injury, and I thought it was that. And I've been to the Poynton Clinic, and I've spent so much money and time on this, but like it's good because I've got the gym and I've had rehab and everything else for a year. But it's actually this, and hopefully I'll be getting a hysterectomy soon, I'm hoping. So yeah, it's pretty much the only kind of thing that'll get rid of it properly.
Yeah. Yes,
you can try loads of stuff, but essentially it's kind of just dragging it out. And I'd had fibroids out and been through the mill with that before, and the doctor said anything else and you can have, I think, I can't remember what the other one is. That's not laparoscopy. I don't know. There's another thing anyway that I could do that would prolong it a little bit longer, but like I don't need my womb at the moment, you know, that way. I've already made peace with the fact that I'm probably going to be having a hysterectomy when he told me that, you know, when he told me that we can do this thing, it'll put a plaster on it for a while. So yeah, I'm happy for it to go.
Yeah. And will you be
Yeah.
able to hang on to your ovaries?
I don't know. I want to do research into that, probably. So yeah, I want to research it properly, you know. So that's why I'm here. Because I was just like, if there's any time I really have needed to look after myself, it's now, you know. So yeah.
I can't remember your menopausal status. It's like a couple of years since you did the training, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've been peri, but then when I was having my scan for this, the radiographer was like, "Oh, I can't even find your ovaries. They're that small." And I was like, "Okay,
Charming.
yeah, clearly not peri anymore." Yeah.
So in that
Yeah.
case, you know that your ovaries aren't of any use to you. So
Yeah.
at least you don't have to do a fight with the doctor. You know, I mean, that's obviously your research is up to you, but if they're not producing follicles, then they're also not producing estrogen. You're making that in your fat and your adrenals. So yeah, that's not such a big drama. I mean, the drama there may be other implications that I don't know about, but certainly in that regard, anyway, that's kind of nice that you've managed to get naturally into your menopause before having to
I've
have
been
surgery.
exactly. Like I've been on HRT. I found it very helpful. It was a low dose of estrogen. And then once I got put onto testosterone, it made a massive difference to me. Because I've
Okay, you
literally
did do
just been,
testosterone.
yeah, I've been dragging myself around for years going, what is wrong with me? So I'm wondering if this is part of it. I'm hoping it is because yeah,
Oh,
it's
I'd
not
say,
sustainable.
yeah, no, I would say that would be very impactful on everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're only the second person I've met with it, because I couldn't remember what it was, but when you described it, I remember somewhere in the mists of in the last 5 years, I've met someone with that, but it's not as obviously as common as endometriosis.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be as awful, you know. Endometriosis seems to really just be so horrible for people.
It doesn't seem to be so awful. Okay,
Oh,
that's good to
yeah.
know. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
but
like
it's been pretty
basically like
hard, obviously.
it's pretty hard, yeah, but I think once you get the hysterectomy, like that's it, you know, that way. And then like you
Yeah.
just come off all of the bad stuff basically, you know. So yeah, dairy, wheat, sugar and caffeine, but I can have green tea. So yeah, today is my first caffeine-free day and I'm just like clawing through the day.
Have you got a headache? I always get headaches when I used to do caffeine, get awful headaches.
Yeah, I can have green tea, so I'm okay. So I've had
Oh yeah, okay.
2 cups of matcha and 3 regular green tea. Yeah.
You're probably like up to the level of a coffee by now in terms
Oh
of
yeah.
caffeine with the green tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, when you hear about all those things that you're being encouraged to let go of, the sugar and the alcohol and the caffeine and the gluten and stuff. It kind of does point to the way in which we've been brought down a path as a Western society that is really not serving us very well, because those are all such common things that are cheap, or well, some of them aren't so cheap, some of them are very cheap. They are staples, everybody uses them. And then some are, thought of as treats and all that kind of thing. And indeed, there is pleasure to be gained from pretty much every single one of those things that you listed. But there is also pleasure to be gained from lots of other things. And the funny thing is, this evening's session is about inflammation and joint aches and pains, but inflammation in terms of systemic. And those are things also that can contribute to inflammation. I read, I don't know where I wrote it down, if I have it here. If I don't have it here, I can give you approximate. Oh yeah, here it is. I don't know who this person is, and I don't know where I came across him or him saying this, but somebody called Dan or Dawn, Buettner, Dan Buettner or something. And he was just talking, oh, it's the guy who, oh no, I can't remember it wasn't that guy. He said something along the lines, rather than making people feel like they are the baddies who've indulged in the booze and the sugar and the gluten and the blah, rather than spending individual time trying to coach individuals to give up this and give up that and do more this and do more that. The quote I wrote down, it's very difficult and it's not going to come immediately or possibly ever. All we have to do is shift the focus from thinking that we're going to change 330 million people's minds to changing their environment. So if we were not slap bang in the middle of a supermarket where all the stuff that causes inflammation, that contributes to ill health, is the stuff that's all brightly packaged and cheap, or that's advertised as like, you know, a glass of wine with your friends means you're a successful, fancy female kind of thing, we wouldn't have nearly the same issues. It's what we're barraged with is really the problem. I was talking to my daughter about it because she had huge Halloween stash and she wanted to hang on to all of it. And of course, I kind of lost it a bit. I was just felt devastated by the amount of stuff she had. And we ended up eventually, once I stopped being stupid, we had a conversation about it. And I was saying, you know, what would happen if we packaged sweets in brown, plain paper? You know, might people be less interested in it? It's not like, you know, there's a value to having some sweets every now and then or whatever. But we kind of figured out that probably we'd end up finding that brown paper was the trendiest, most attractive thing in the world. We'd managed to think our way into finding it really attractive. I don't know, probably not, but there's a lot in that, isn't there? In terms of self forgiveness, I suppose, that it's pretty tricky to face the barrage and then always make the right decisions, air quotes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, go on.
I have a dog that's like literally going manic under my chair. So please excuse that for that. A dog. Yeah, she can't find her ball and she's insisting on getting it. So there'll be a lot of, I'll try and put her out in a minute. Sorry. Yeah.
You said you had a load of questions. Is that yoga teacher questions or other questions?
So many questions that I can't even think of right now, Niamh. But I plan on having a membership for a good while, so I'm sure they'll come up over the months.
Yeah, and just, you know, bring them in, even if I'm teaming the month on us in a certain direction, just bring in the questions, even if they don't have nothing to do with the theme, because you probably didn't know what the theme was today. What's Kira saying? Perfect time for chatting about aches and pains, going for a walk every day for 45 to 60 minutes for about a month, and started getting cramps and twitches in my calves in the evening, taking magnesium every night and massaging them too. Interesting. Growing pains as a kid. That's interesting. Are those walks at that time new?
I'll risk it for a moment. The amount of walking I've been doing, and it's been really good for my mental health.
Yeah.
But I've just noticed lately that it's, starting to react in my legs. So I think I need a new pair of shoes, but I just think it's interesting because I used to walk all the time and ride my bike and all that kind of stuff, and nothing, you know, here and there, but like the last 2 nights. So when I try to sleep, then I'm like, you know, my legs are like running in the bed and I have to take Tylenol and that kind of stuff. So, and I already take like 400 whatever units of magnesium. Okay, so and I use magnesium lotion too.
Do you know sorry, do you know which magnesium you're taking? Which type? Citrate, taurate?
Glycinate.
Glycinate, okay. Okay, and I'm just wondering also about, do you have enough calcium in your diet? Do you think you have enough calcium?
I don't know. I don't drink milk because I'm lactose intolerant, but I eat cheese and other things.
So just in terms of muscular health, calcium can be a thing. So your calcium rich foods would be obviously dairy, cheese, yogurt, milk, but also almonds are particularly high, nuts in general, but almonds, chickpeas particularly high, sesame seeds, but obviously only if they're ground. Green leafy veg, yes, but you have to eat a ton of it to get the calcium where you want it to go. And then obviously having vitamin D and K2 with your calcium. So fermented foods or supplementing, always better to get these things from foods, but vitamin D is hard to get from food. So, you know, calcium could be a thing to just have a look at if you're doing all of that. And do you find that the magnesium, the self massages helps that?
Yeah, it does, I think. And it's interesting that it happens like at the end of the day. And I think that's because when I'm, you know, you calm and you sit and right, everything just kind of chills out. But yeah, the massaging helps. So I'll just keep doing that. I take vitamin D as a supplement because being a ginger and I have celiac disease. So I take that, and it's dark where I live. I'm in
Exactly.
semi-North Canada, so
Yeah, you definitely need it. We all need, you know, all of us that are here anyway are in the Northern Hemisphere. So vitamin D is kind of non-negotiable, really. That's interesting. What was I thinking? Oh, were you saying one of the weeks that you suffer with restless legs a bit as well? Was that you? Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of all out of a similar box, isn't it?
yeah,
But
that's
obviously
I take magnesium every night
that's the
because
thing.
if I don't, then I'm like running in my sleep like a
Okay,
dog.
so it does help you, but it's like, yeah, it's obviously, it might be your little your Achilles heel, I guess, is that's how you get affected. And with celiac disease, you can, depending on the state of your gut, you may be absorbing things less well. So, you know, the amount of supplements you take may not be all being passed into the bloodstream, but you can't be messing with supplements either. They're powerful things as well. You don't kind of, just because it's a supplement doesn't throw a load in.
Yeah, I'll look at adding in calcium and see how it goes. It's just kind of interesting timing with the topic today.
Yeah, it is very interesting, and indeed, you know, calcium can be an issue with celiac disease as well, you know, and bone health and all of that. So, be no harm. Just to say to you folks, if you are ever thinking about supplementing with calcium, often it will say take 3, but if you are taking 3, like let's say it's pills or capsules, and it says take 3 a day, disperse them through the day. It's not great to take all your calcium at once. So one in with breakfast, one with lunch, one with dinner. Now for me, I would just forget. I am taking more calcium because of my osteoporosis, but I pretty much only remember to take it in the morning. And then even though I think every time I have a meal, I think, oh, is there calcium in this meal? I still forget to take a supplement. But I am thinking about, is there a little bit of calcium in every single meal? So peppering it through the day is one thing. This is about heart safety. So calcium, when it doesn't get absorbed where it needs to go, can be detrimental for the heart. So also twin it if you can with vitamin D and vitamin K2. A lot of supplements, calcium supplements now, excuse me, have vitamin D and K2 in them, but not all of them. Yes, and soy milk it's not always fortified in Ireland, and I don't know about the UK, but I think it's always fortified in North America and Canada. Okay, thanks very much. Nicola, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good actually. I was lucky enough to have a bit of a sunshine break over the midterm, which was very lovely. And
Where'd you go?
It coincided with my period arrived as we landed, which was a bit like, oh, that's kind of a bit annoying, but it was a really, we had the kids with us, but it was just a really relaxing holiday. I actually got a proper rest, probably the first time on the period, probably for the year, really. So it was just such a lovely, I was even able to kind of, handle a glass of wine and kind of, a few more treats without any, my digestion was so much better. I was sleeping better. I just felt we had a complete news and social media break for the week, which was amazing. So yes, I'm feeling really kind of good, really. Hopefully that'll kind of give us a boost through the winter months and the kind of the general heaviness of the world. Just trying to kind of give myself that boost to, you got to, you know, keep going as well, don't you, yourself? It's kind of, you can't take on all the world's problems all the time. You have to give yourself that step back so you can come back in and, you know, support other people and look after yourself as well, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's you know, humanity wide at the moment, that kind of tension between living life and feeling guilty about living life, feeling guilty about the privileges that we have, and, you know, not knowing, you know, for me, I'm kind of like, is it okay for me to go onto social media and tell people where to find me for my work, or should I be touting my business, even though it's a business that's trying to help people? Feeling guilty about that and feeling worried and scared and all of that. But I think an interesting kind of what's the word, metaphor or simile or something, is that for any of you who've ever been bereaved of someone that you're very, very close to, you know, like not a, yeah, someone very close to you. For me, my parents would be the close people that I've, you know, when I've been at the center of a bereavement, you spend time weeping and weeping, and then you'll just spend times laughing and giggling. And it's, I think it's the nervous system knows that it can't sustain the pain the whole time and the crying, and it makes you find something funny, or it just, we naturally move ourselves in and out of these things, and our nervous system is asking us to. And I think if it's okay to do that when someone you absolutely deeply love has died prematurely, then in this circumstance, it's also okay to do that. I had a client today who's clearly very nervous system dysregulated. I'd say it's right up here all the time. Her nervous system really jangled. And I was describing visual orientation to her to try and, whenever she's starting to feel these things that she's finding uncomfortable bubbling up, that she look around and notice things in detail, like the light switch or whatever. And she was like, I'm doing that. And she was saying, when I'm out walking, I'm looking around. And I thought she was going to say that she's just looking around nature, but she was like, I'm looking at the bark and the roots and the stones. And I thought, my God, her nervous system is actually shouting at her, and she's gone into this thing of looking at things in detail, because she's obviously, her nervous system is thinking, I need you to orientate. So it's interesting what we can do instinctively. And for some of us, the only thing we can do to regulate the nervous system is to go and watch something on Netflix, and that's okay too, you know, to just zone out for a bit. But I really hear you with that struggle, and it's a lot of, you know, I cohabit with my ex, and the odd time we'll have a chat after we eat with the girls, and it's all this kind of conversation that those of you who are parents of younger kids will resonate with, or maybe with older kids as well. Just this sense of, what the hell are we handing over to these youngsters? And at the same time, here's Helen. At the same time, all our parents had huge worries about what they were handing over to us. So yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. And if anybody has any really wise words to say about that, they'd be very welcome. Helen, you're welcome. We've all just said how we are.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm actually quite good. Yeah, I'm happy with myself. I don't know if I had said that I had fallen the last time. So I've discovered that, yeah, my ankle is broken. Bone in my ankle. No, that's very dramatic. No, there's a bone in my ankle broken. So when they finally came around, the consultant said, well, it's healing nicely, so we're just going to leave it alone. So I feel a little bit vindicated, you know.
I tell you what else, given your medical status and the estrogen blocking medications and all of that, and I know, you know, your bones had improved, but the fact that, for instance, bone heals better if we have good, soft, healthy, soft tissue around it, your ligaments, tendons, and muscles.
Okay.
So the fact that it's healing nicely, given your medical history, is pretty freaking awesome.
Oh, great. Super.
Mm. Yeah.
Good. So yeah.
I also like your hair.
Oh, my hair. Oh, God,
You
thank
look like you've had a hairdo, looking pretty fancy.
No, I haven't. It just, yeah, it just happens
You're
to be
looking
like
kind
this.
of glamorous because you're also in
Yeah.
leopard skin.
Yeah. No.
So we've been talking about aches and pains a little bit. Well, we've been talking about inflammation, not because of jointy stuff, but because of other stuff. And one person was talking about kind of muscular cramps and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a little slideshow for you girls,
Super.
which you'll notice that some of it is repeated from last month, which I'm doing deliberately because I want you to be, and I may have said this last month, always noticing that when I'm suggesting X, Y, or Z, that it's supportive of a lot of different things. So I shouldn't need to talk too long. And it's a shorter slideshow, I think, than the heart one that I did last time. So if you have any like notes you want to take or questions you want to ask, you can either interrupt me or wait until I'm done. And then you can also take screenshots if you want to. Like, I'm not going to go hugely into diet, but there will be pictures of diety type, nutrition-y type stuff. And many of you will know all of this already. So, bit of a fancy title, a systemic and local consideration, because what I think we need to remember with joints and aches is that they may not be related to systemic inflammation, and yet they may. So if it's a local consideration, it's usually going to be about an injury, a soft tissue injury, or in Helen's case, a bony injury. But if you've got particularly asymmetrical joint aches and pains, then it might be something for the physiotherapist, or it might be something for an MRI. You know, you might have maybe arthritis in one hip and not in the other. So joints aches and pains obviously can be physiological. It could be to do with reduced cartilage. It could be to do, as I say, with a soft tissue injury. And these are things that are essentially outside my remit, except in the physical practice. After this little slideshow, I'll talk more about avoidance of injury and physical joint care for joints that aren't in the kind of trouble that need a physiotherapist or a rheumatologist or whatever. So this little piece is going to be more about the systemic, with just a tiny bit about the local consideration, the actual joints themselves. Oh, that's not going to work. There we go. So some of the reasons why we may experience joint aches and pains. Obviously, injury, we all know that. But excess load, and excess load is going to be varied from one person to the other, and what is an excess load is going to change, not just in a linear fashion through your life, but in an up and down fashion. So an excess load is going to be very different when you are 85 and sick to when you are 85 and well. And an excess load, you know, a healthy, someone who's systemically well at 85 may be able to manage more load than someone who is unwell at 65. Excess load may vary because of the amount of load that you've placed upon those joints yesterday or the day before. So like, let's say you've done a 6-hour hike, what you manage then in the gym after that might be very different. So being, what's the word, flexible about how you load your joints is important. In terms of yoga and stuff, do I mean on stuff? Yeah, I guess I mean on stuff. If you're tending to find joints are struggling, you might be better working with postures that spread the load evenly through your joints rather than working a lot on balances, for instance. So, you know, for those of you you've all been to my classes before, so you know sometimes I do fairly often, I'll do these kind of balancy things where we stand for ages on one leg and then we'll reach the leg out behind, and I'll get you to spend ages getting that foot back down to the floor. I don't know if you could see me with the screen share there. It may have been a wasted demonstration. That may be too much for some, if you have a tendency to joint aches and pains, to do that kind of level of joint challenge. And it is a deliberate challenge, as you know, we need deliberate challenges. There's not much we can do for lower synovial fluid, except make sure that we warm up before we do any exercise to make sure the joints are warm. And things like shaking and jiggling are really good for warming up the joints. So you don't have to do like a 7-hour warm up, but shaking and jiggling and flapping around, that kind of thing, bouncing. And even just getting your core temperature up is quite a good warm up by, for instance, jogging on the spot or doing 50 jumps or something like that, which of course, if the jumps are too much for the joints, then you're going to be careful about that. Reduced cartilage is just something that's going to be progressive, unfortunately, throughout life, even with HRT, which will of course slow it down. Age will also reduce cartilage, so that's going to happen, and that's a big contributor to joint pain. So that's why, you know, those of you who've done the training and those of you who just come to my classes, you'll know that I'm always talking about trying to avoid bringing joints to the end of their range of motion, so that we're not pressing bone on delicate cartilage. Reduce collagen, of course, because that's part of what creates the structure around our joints. It's the structure of our bones, it's the structure of our soft tissue as well. So when we reduce collagen, we just have the matrix that holds these things in place is going to be problematic. I'll talk about that later on, about supplementation with collagen. So then we're getting into perimenopause now, or menopause now, which is a dysregulated, well, a dysregulated inflammation response can happen at any time. But in perimenopause and postmenopause, more in perimenopause, there's likely to be a little higher inflammation than there was previously. And that just means that the body is, it's not, I wouldn't call it an autoimmune disease, but it's like the body is misinterpreting the level of protection it needs to maintain in a joint or throughout the whole body. It's just reacting fervently to stuff it doesn't like. It may be a little over fervently. So we'll be talking a lot about inflammation regulation through this slideshow, but also through the de-stressing practices that we'll be doing, some of them that we'll be doing later. Simply low estrogen, but also feel-good hormones. Those of you who've done my course will know that I go on and on about the feel-good hormones a lot because they are anti-inflammatory in themselves. So these guys come up again and again as well worth pursuing, and a lack of them can certainly contribute to aches and pains, but also the feel-good hormones help us with our experience of pain. So we may still have exactly the same condition, but the feel-good hormones will make us notice the pain less, which is a positive. Of course, it's a positive. Won't be fixing the issue, but we'll be feeling it less. I don't know why, well, elevated and dysregulated inflammation, I guess they're kind of the same thing. So how to reduce injury and load, listen to the body, noticing that it might be different from time to time, resting, of course, warming up, as I said, but variety also. So just as if you work on a computer all day long, or I don't know when I was doing loads of texting at one point. I had a friend and we were all very gung-ho with texting, and my thumb got repetitive strain injury. Right up at the top joint of my thumb there. And that's the same, obviously, with your whole body. So if you're doing the same thing again and again and again and again, that's going to impact the joints that you're using. So if you're someone who likes to move, just try and make sure that you do different things. So if you do like walking, learn to walk on your hands instead, so you can go hiking on your hands in a handstand. you know, obviously you've got to look for those varieties yourself, but maybe go dancing instead of hiking one day or something like that. So you remember this little slide from the last time. All of those things still apply for the reduction of inflammation through stress management. And I don't need to go into all of those, and we'll do some breathing practices later. And again, trying to help you recognize, here we see the same slide again, that it's again the same kind of stuff. So serotonin can be looked after by looking after our gut microbiome, for instance, and oxytocin by social connection, and dopamine. Try to remember how we get dopamine. Well, things like being on our mobile phones and getting pings on our mobile phones, some of the more negative things. But touch, I think, is a really important thing to think about regarding aches and pains. So self-touch, get a massage. This is not just to do with the feel-good hormones, it's also to do with the fact that your pain receptors the signal travels slower in the pain receptors than it does in the touch and heat receptors. So even self-touch will reduce pain. A hot water bottle or a hot bath will reduce pain. And it doesn't mean it's fixing the issue, but it gives the brain some other signals so that the signals from the pain receptors reduce, or the danger receptors, the nociceptors reduce. So, and then massage and self-touch and warmth also help induce the feel-good hormones. So a pleasant, positive cycle there. So this is where you might be kind of, you know, sit up and take interest in. There's more general nutritional things, of course, like I think we come to that on the next slide. Yeah, we do. Have I gone back too many? I have. There we go. But these are kind of the more specific things. So Grania was talking about all the things that she's been led to avoid or suggested to avoid, and there they are, all at the bottom of the screen there. So sweets and biscuits and that kind of thing with a lot of refined sugar and trans fats, quite inflammatory, crisps and that kind of thing, alcohol, processed meats there just above the alcohol to the right. But salt, a high amount of salt is also quite iffy for inflammation. And also, I think I would have talked to you last month when we were doing the heart health piece, that we do need to be mindful of our salt intake post-menopausally, just keeping an eye on the kind of amount of things like crisps and salty meats and takeaways will very likely have more salt than you would put in your food in cooking. So I think not a lot of us think about salt and inflammation. And then anti-inflammatory foods on top there. I think did I give you my little recipe for the turmeric, ginger and garlic paste? Yeah, it might have been just you individually, Helen, but yeah, okay, a couple of you are nodding there. So that's a nice way to get those things into your diet. And obviously you need, well, not obviously, you need to have black pepper when you're taking turmeric, if you're taking it for inflammation, because it helps us absorb the curcumin, which is the active ingredient that helps reduce inflammation. But cherries and cherry juice, and you can buy cherry juice in health food stores. That's really beneficial, but it's also, prick your ears up for this one, really beneficial for sleep apparently as well, is cherry juice. Obviously try to get one that's not laced with sugar, which is often not as easy as it should be. And then obviously HRT seem to have mixed results in terms of aches and pains. I have heard anecdotally many women saying they reduced, and then that we don't have a lot of evidence to say that HRT reduces aches and pains. So it's going to be an individual thing, but just because we don't yet have evidence doesn't mean it's not happening. And above the HRT there, you've got omega-3s. So omega-3 supplements, especially if you're not eating oily fish a couple of times a week, I would say more like 3 times a week. I have heard some kind of Western medical practitioners saying that omega-3 supplementation isn't very effective. I find it very effective. But all those oils, things like vitamin E, evening primrose oil are worth taking, but omega-3 in particular has very inflammation supportive or inflammation regulation supportive components to it. And then I talked about, this is not, collagen is, I've just realized I shouldn't have put the collagen in there because that's not about inflammation. That's obviously about structural stuff, but I'll talk about it anyway, even if it's in the wrong little poster. So collagen does have really good research in there in regard to supporting joint pain and joint integrity. They do see quite a lot of quite significant, statistically significantly positive results for collagen supplementation for joints. And they're also starting to see more significant results for collagen for bones. So I think that though it is a fantastically expensive supplement, it seems to be one that yeah, does seem to be coming up trumps in terms of repeated studies rather than single studies for particular areas of the body. The research would tell us that about 8 grams of collagen is what you need for these particular effects that have been studied. The tricky thing is you ain't going to get collagen if you're a vegetarian. So if you're a vegetarian, you're just going to have to close your ears. I think it might have been Grania. Was it you, Grania, who said you were doing loads of bone broth when you were doing the training?
Yeah, I used to have loads of it.
Yeah.
Because I'd gone on a really kind of very restrictive cleanse. And I'd cut out fruit as well. So I'm delighted that I don't have to cut out fruit anymore. So I'm like, I know it's really restrictive, like everything at the bottom is gone and salt, you're right. But but I can have fruit, which is brilliant. So it's not so bad.
And
you
who's
know.
guiding you nutritionally?
Well, you hopefully.
Okay,
I was
but
going to
like
come to you for that as well. Yeah.
Who told you what to cut out now and who told you what to put in that you could put
Really,
fruit
like
in?
if you Google it,
Okay,
it comes
your
up.
own
Yeah,
research.
like there's
Yeah.
so much of it, and it says no bananas, but I only like very green bananas, and they're like nature's takeaway, so I'm not cutting them out yet until I'm
Nature's
told
takeaway. I love
specifically
it.
no. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you see, this is the thing that the all or nothing thinking leads to, you know, what is the word, falling off the wagon and then feeling bad about yourself, and that's going to contribute to your inflammation. So you've got to take these things with a pinch of salt without eating too much salt. But bone broth is a way of getting collagen, but when you read into studies, you can't get a lot of collagen from bone broth, or you certainly don't know how much you're getting compared to a supplement. The marine collagens are more expensive than the bovine and poultry collagens, and the marine collagen doesn't have as many of the types of collagen. There's a few different types of collagen, and the ones that we need more for the bones and the joints are unfortunately more in bovine. So it is tricky, but I'll just have to leave that with you. And then as a quick glance, you can see there on the left olive oil, which is high in omega-3, but obviously the fish-based has the HPA and EPA and DHA. No, it's HPA. No, that's the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. DHA and EPA, the substratas of omega-3 are available in fish oil already. So with olive oil, you have to do the conversion, but it is a very good anti-inflammatory food. Leafy greens, big time, deeply colorful foods. So cherries and berries and beetroot and red peppers and that kind of thing. And obviously then omega-3 rich foods as well, especially if you're not going to be supplementing. So it's worth thinking about bones when you're thinking about joint aches and pains anyway, because there is an intimate relationship of the two. But it's also looking at our overall health, and inflammation really does affect our bone health as well. So if we're looking after ourselves regarding osteoporosis, we're looking after inflammation. But mostly what I wanted to do here is show you the connection and the similarity between, at the very least, the two outside images, which have very few things in them that aren't repeated. Like there's only, what's the difference? There's tomatoes in there in heart and it isn't there in the brain. There's more grains and beans in the heart one because of flushing out cholesterol. But if I also put the inflammation slide in there, you would see that it's very similar to the heart and brain. So olive oil comes in there again, the green leafy veg comes in there, the omega-3 high foods, nuts and seeds, garlic, berries, green tea, Grania, you'll be glad about. Some little question in the chat here. Oh no, you're getting a chicken flavor from your protein-based collagen. What brand is it, Helen?
I just run and get it, actually. It's not far away, but you feel like as if it should be warm. It's that strong, you know?
Yeah, sounds a bit gross, all right. And then digestion can be a bit of a trigger for inflammation issues. So one of you was talking about reflux earlier, Margaret was talking about reflux anyway. So I'm glad I happen to have this slide in here. But when digestion is struggling, that can contribute to inflammation. And when inflammation is elevated, that can contribute to digestive issues. So in a positive cycle, it's worth looking after your digestive health. So you've got Rocket in there, which is a bitter food, which helps us to digest. What's the brand, Helen?
It's Gal.
Show me the pic, hold it up to your camera. All right, is it a pill?
Yeah.
Oh, and you still get it, do you
So,
get the chickeny flavor as a reflux kind of thing?
oh no, I can smell it immediately. So it's chondroitic chicken cartilage, organic bamboo extract, curcumin, and bio-curcumin.
Oh, it's got curcumin in it for inflammation. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. It's a bit tricky. I use
I mean, it was 70 euro. I'm going to keep holding my nose and taking it. It came very highly recommended in the health food shop, you know.
And how many pills do you have to take a day?
One.
That can't have 10 grams. How many grams are in one pill?
It's 2
months. How many grams are in each one?
How many 25 grams.
In each pill?
Oh, no, sorry. No. 200 milligrams.
So that's 22 grams,
is it? No, sorry. Now it's 200 milligrams of vitamin C, 100 milligrams of chicken cartilage, 40 milligrams of chicken brisket cartilage.
It's grim, isn't it? I hope there's no vegetarians.
And then 60 more of some other chicken cartilage.
Does it say anywhere how much collagen you're getting per dose?
Doesn't actually. In one capsule, no, it just says, you know, how much collagen, sorry. So 100 milligrams plus 40 plus 60. 200 milligrams.
Okay. So what's that in grams? 2 grams?
2 grams, yeah.
That's very low. I mean, maybe it was recommended because of the curcumin in it, or curcumin.
Yeah.
Because the research is more for like 8 grams a day. So I'm kind of surprised about that. Send me a picture of the ingredients, would you?
I will, of course. Yeah.
Thanks. So yes, with regard to the digestive health, but obviously you've got Margaret's fancy thing with the sticky in the mouth thing. And Helen's going, what are they talking? What is she talking about? The sticky in the mouth thing. You'll find out when you watch the beginning of it. It might be worth watching the beginning of the recording. So eating Rocket or some other bitter tasting food is gets your digestive enzymes flowing really efficiently. So that you're already essentially ready for the food before you put it in, which may be helpful. And it's interesting that in the Mediterranean, they'll often have a very bitter leafed salad at the beginning of a meal, like that kind of curly lettuce with a very light dressing on it. And it may be one of the reasons why those Mediterraneans seem to come up trump in terms of diet and health. So bitter foods, artichoke as well, dandelion, that kind of thing, like dandelion tea, that kind of thing. Omega-3s, again, there's a little picture of some bone broth there, which is very soothing for the gut. Sauerkraut and ginger is quite soothing. Sauerkraut, obviously, for the gut bacteria, yogurt for the gut bacteria, pectin. So apples have a lot of pectin in them. That's why the apple is in there. Stewed apple in particular with a bit of cinnamon, really supportive for the digestive system. Bramleys have a particularly high level of pectin. So I favor Bramleys, you know, cooking apples stewed with cinnamon. You don't need any sugar. They're delicious on their own. The pile of seeds of spices there is in there to indicate that variety is very good for our gut, as you know. I think the seeds and stuff and the grains on the left there in the middle on top of the rocket, that's indicating the need for fiber to keep things moving through. And then there's kefir there on the top right for the bacteria, and tempeh, which is a fermented soya product if you can tolerate soy. Very good for the digestive system as well. If you're having reflux or you're recovering after a digestive episode, things like bone broth, apple and cinnamon, and peppermint capsules can be really nice. So you can get peppermint as a supplement, which can be really soothing for the digestion as well. So free radicals are a big part of why inflammation can be elevated. So free radicals are basically what age us and kill us, and they're constantly at war with antioxidants. So the more antioxidants you can put in to fight the free radicals, the better. That's basically the recipe to aging and not aging. If we could keep our antioxidants higher than our free radicals, we'd never die. So things like having very charred foods they'll be higher in free radicals. So barbecues, that kind of thing. So have a salad with your barbecue. An interesting thing that was told to me by the person who's done the peer review for the nutrition section of my upcoming book, said that it's only with charred foods that eating the antioxidant rich foods at the same time is necessary. Whereas if you're having kind of, you know, pizza or whatever on a day, as long as you have some antioxidant rich foods at some point during the day, that seems to be okay. You don't have to have it at the same time as the actual pizza. Many of us have in the 90s and 2000s been told that coconut oil is the way to go, but it is very high in saturated fat, as is butter, which for those of us with high cholesterol, which is very common in postmenopause, those are not really very safe for cholesterol, but they're much safer in terms of free radicals because they don't oxidize as quickly. So if you were to, there's a lovely graph that I came across some time back, which showed the level of cooking time and temperature at which different oils oxidize and go higher in free radicals. And for olive oil, up to about 20 minutes at obviously not a burning high temperature where it smokes, a reasonable temperature up to 20 minutes, it doesn't oxidize. But if you put olive oil or sunflower oil or those light oils in the oven at 200 degrees for 40 minutes to roast your vegetables, they will be oxidizing. So using those higher saturated fat oils for longer, higher temperatures, and then things like olive oil for sauteing stuff or cooking stuff at lower temperatures. When I make chips for my kids, I'll often parboil the chips so that they're not going to have to cook in the oven as long, so that they're only, because I prefer them with olive oil, the taste of them, than with coconut oil, and I'm trying to mind my cholesterol. So the chips only need to stay in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes if I've parboiled them, and they still get that nice golden thing going on. I have also cooked really thinly cut potatoes into chips and cook them without any oil. It's surprisingly nice, actually. Yeah. And then the external toxins would be things like looking after your shampoos, your conditioners, your household cleaning stuff. You can ask me about that afterwards. I'm sure, I'm guessing pretty much everybody knows, and anyone who's watching the recording, feel free to drop me an email for any clarification. So just bringing it all together, movement that is varied, but also that you enjoy would be very important, and avoiding too hefty load on your joints. So that's that person walking in nature, having a nice time with their movement. Any kind of things that you know that reduce stress, like meditation and breath work, rest in general. I wonder, you know, the stress picture of the person sitting by the lake, which I told you last month, I realized he had a cigarette in his hand and I had to cover it with one of the blobs. I'm not sure if this isn't the same guy having a rest in a hammock now. That model got a great time. Oh no, he doesn't have a, I think the other guy had a bracelet on, so it's probably not him. Anyway, I wouldn't mind being that model. Receiving touch for actually, you know, getting into the tissues, but also for the feel-good hormones. Eating the rainbow, so lots of vegetables, but eating the rainbow is always a goodie. And omega-3s and collagen get their own special little mention there, and then elimination of toxins as best you can. So, lecture over. Any questions, observations, wonderings, etc.? Looks like Kira's going to write something down. No, or are you just leaning forward for no good reason? She's typing. Or maybe it is for a good reason. Yes, avocado oil. And that's a good point. Kira's saying avocado oil has a high smoke point. Yes. And that's a good way of putting it. This free radical thing, the oxidization and the increase in free radicals that happens with different oils. But yes, avocado oil is pretty good for smoking with, for cooking with. I also happen to use it for my vagina as well. Why not? So I have a bottle by my bed, and the reason I use that, because my sister was saying use flax oil because that's got phytoestrogens in it, but that has to be kept in the fridge, and then I would never use it. Whereas the avocado oil is so stable, it can be kept out of the fridge, so I can keep it by my bed to remember to do it. Yeah, avocado oil is a goodie. A lot of people say rapeseed is a good oil for cooking with. It's really unstable. It's funny, there was like, apparently Jamie Oliver did this whole big thing about how great rapeseed oil was for cooking with, roasting, sauteing, salads, etc. But actually it's it's like most seed oil. So it's things like sunflower seed oil, rapeseed oil, vegetable oil, you know, the kind of real thin, pale looking oils. They're the ones, if you want a kind of visual for it, that are dodgiest to cook with. So you're going with either the real thick ones or olive oil for a short time, or avocado oil. Yeah, it's a bit pricier than olive oil. I suppose that would be the bad thing about it. I've never actually consumed it. Oh, sesame oil would be very Grania would not be good to cook with either. Yeah, yeah. No, that would, I don't think that's got a high. That's another seed oil, and then they sell it toasted. I use toasted sesame seed oil sometimes because it's so delicious, but I wouldn't use it a lot. Avocado oil is good on salads. Okay, cool. Tastes good to you anyway, so that's cool. All righty. If there isn't anything else, we will have a nice practice, and it will be just under an hour long. And I recommend you make for yourself a cozy nest, as always. Take off your shoes, be warm though. We won't be getting jiggy. I have a new client who can't do anything lying down. I'm really sad for her because it's like my favorite place to be. And it's such a nice place to be able to gently move the body, isn't it? She gets dizzy and nauseous, so she's obviously got a vestibular thing going on. So if you're able to lie down, just notice how lucky you are to be able to lie down without feeling ganky. We'll do a little physical practice, and then we will do a bit of breath work. You know what I might do? I'm going to record this as two separate recordings so that so people can find